Hey, Gabriel,
Hey, Gabriel Jose.
where are we so lucky to be today?
I'm lucky enough to be in San Francisco where it was 80 fucking degrees to get today and it was awful.
I think that it was like 80 in Chicago. So I think that, we cannot invite too much from each other. But in any case, in a couple of months, it's going to be 70 in San Francisco and probably it's going to be 3 in Chicago.
And I can't wait. I can't wait for you to send me messages on Google Messenger, Google Chat to say, I made a huge mistake. And I'll be like, I know.
I told you, but you can come back. I accept you. You're like what is this? Like the story from the Bible, the prodigal son.
Exactly. That's
You're
you.
the prodigal son. It's like we take you back in the tenderloin. It's like just,
I'll
can you do math? Yeah, just welcome back home. Here you go, human feces. Yeah, but that's one of the things. Like it will never happen here because human feces would be like completely frozen during the winter.
Yeah, you would die in the winter.
Probably yes. Yeah, that's something that I'm like just not looking forward to die in the winter, but I'm looking forward to actually just the feeling of I walk out and my eyes freeze. People told me about those stories, and it's like I want to experiment it. I just for a day, at least, I just having this feeling. It's like, what was I thinking?
You'll have more than a day, I promise you. You'll have months.
You'll have 4 months.
How do my eyelashes freeze? Can I spit in the air and it not freeze? You'll have plenty of experiences.
That's fair. I mean, that's the reason, as I told you, is like in the past, I would be like pretty concerned. I would have to actually walk to the office or just take public transportation or drive there. Now I work from home, and thanks to the capitalist model of the gig economy, I can pay someone else to die of hypothermia bringing me my groceries.
And also, you have like a Marshalls and a like big grocery store like 3 blocks from your place. Like you'll be able to put everything you need. Being outside maybe 7 minutes. That's it.
Yeah, I had to say that this may be like one of the most unintentionally gay things that you ever told me. That instead of saying is that hey, you have grocery stores around you, you focus like you have a Marshalls. You can still be trendy and fashionable, even
I
with
mentioned
the
Marshalls because I came to visit you and I was so hot and everything I packed was completely inappropriate, so I had to buy white shirts, which, by the way, I'm wearing my last brand new white shirt here.
Okay.
So that's just my concern, that you don't have a winter coat to prepare you for what's coming. So I want you to have a Marshalls so you can be warm.
That's fair, but you know that I do have winter coats. Winter coats from 10 years ago when I moved to San Francisco, and I was like so naive that it's like, they have a winter, so I'm going to be using all these clothes. For 10 years, I never wore them. I only wore them when I was going back to Spain during Christmas. And now is that they're at the same state, in Chicago.
Let me just say that when I moved to Russia, I bought a winter coat that I thought was appropriate for Russia. I got to Russia and I was like, oh, you're fucking me in the ass. I have to get a Russian winter coat. And I bought a brand new coat because it was so fucking cold.
Okay.
That's what I think is going to happen.
I may need that. That's fair, but at the same time, I prefer the weather to be cold than hot.
That's fair. I get that. 100%. I would rather be cold than hot.
Yeah. So from that perspective, is that I can put more layers of clothes on top of me. With the warm weather, I am not that well. But in any case,
there's only so much you can take off you.
Exactly. Yeah. But about like taking off like your eyes, for example, or talking about like really hot weather, what did we watch today? Because this is a special episode.
This is a special episode. We didn't announce it. We didn't invite anybody to watch it with us because we wanted to release this episode at least a few days, maybe a week before the release of the 2021 Dune. We wanted to watch the 1984 version of Dune directed by David Lynch, starring Kyle MacLachlan.
Kyle MacLachlan and Jean-Luc Picard. I mean, Patrick Stewart.
And then just to be clear, you had seen it.
Oh, yeah.
You've read the books.
Oh, yeah.
I've never seen the movie. I've never read the books. I'm mildly excited for the new Dune, but I'm hesitant.
Yeah, and I think that is interesting because not too long ago we watched Blade Runner 2049 and we were discussing about is epic sci-fi the right genre for Villeneuve? And now we are combining a movie that you could also ask is that was epic sci-fi the best genre for David Lynch?
And I think, because you brought this up, we both had some sort of optimism about Dune. Timothée Chalamet is a pretty good actor. We like the director in some cases. And then we watched Blade Runner 2049 and we were like, holy fuck, Dune is going to be a disaster. This is going to be awful. It's going to be Blade Runner 2049 and we will regret spending our money on this.
Is it going to be 3 hours too?
I have no idea. I don't even want to look because of my husband. I'm obligated to watch this movie.
Well, and also for our audience, we owe it to our audience, you know. So from that perspective, it's like, don't worry, we will watch it. It's only going to be 2 hours and 35 minutes. So I think there is like 10 minutes less than Blade Runner 2049, and those are going to be like making the whole difference in the world.
And I want to be very clear how sad that standard is post-COVID. Like, what are we willing to go to the theater for? Are we willing to tolerate a sci-fi film? Maybe, maybe not. That's the standard that we watch movies now in the theater.
Yeah, I mean, I know that we are doing a really big build-up before we start talking about the movie, but before the beginning of the podcast, of course, I was saying at least that October feels like, oh, there are good movies coming out, or at least interesting movies to go to the cinema to watch. You know, The French Dispatch, Lamb, Dune. Yeah, I was going to say like Tom Jones, the James Bond movie, No Time to Kill, or whatever it's called. So is it? Yeah, it's like, okay, you know, that's going to be entertaining, and I think that at least the new Dune is going to be visually appealing.
It's going to be gorgeous, 100%.
Yeah.
But like Blade Runner 2049, which was gorgeous, and the story was a piece of shit.
Yeah. But in any case, we are not here to express how much we doubt of Villeneuve being able to pull this one out. We're actually to just look back. But I like, because it's like, this is almost like just expressing our score about like the next extra movie that we'll be talking about. But we are here for actually talking about the 1984 version of Dune.
Which is the year I was born. And you and I are both, I think, hardcore David Lynch fans.
Correct.
Hardcore.
Yeah, and that's the reason why I watched Dune. And I think that when I watched Dune, like that time, it's like, I'm done. I'm not watching more. I love Lost Highway. I love Mulholland Drive. Blue Velvet was a bit weird, you know. And when I was this, like, I'm not going to be watching Wild at Heart or anything else that he did. He said, "This, no, I'm out of this." Is that with time?
You watched Wild at Heart, Lost Highway. I reintroduced you to David Lynch. You're welcome.
Okay, look, buddy, it's not like I never heard of him, you know. But in any case, we shared a lot, and for me, I always told you that it's like, I'm surprised you didn't watch it. It's garbage, but it's still like something by him. And at some points, I think that you can see him directing, but is the weirdest, not the weirdest, but the less personal of his movies. You know, like the one that is like less about how he sees the world, how he sees like all the weirdness. He tries to look through his prism in some aspects about like weird stuff that happens, but this is a director that needs to write his stuff. He cannot adapt everything, clearly. But should we talk about like what this movie is about? Because he wrote the screenplay, by the way.
So before we started recording, Jose and I were fighting about who has to give the synopsis of this film because it's so fucking retarded. And I know we can't say that word anymore, but come on, this film, holy shit. I don't even know how to give a synopsis of this.
Okay, I can give like a really, really high level synopsis. You know, like we're in the future.
Let me try. This is my job.
I think that it was like an extra episode, but okay, I will give you like 3 minutes.
Yeah, give me the chance. Correct me. The year is 10,191. Mm-hmm. Planets are very evolved. There is one planet in the entire universe which is ruled by one emperor, king.
Eh?
There's a ruler of the universe.
Yeah, there is an emperor. Yeah.
And there's a spice called melange, and it allows people or like anybody traveling to fold space. space. So essentially, like, what is the shortest distance between point A and point B? It's a direct line. No, like according to Einstein, we should be able to fold space.
Yep.
This spice allows people to fold space. So there's like instantaneous intergalactic travel.
Well, the species is for many other things. The species, the malance, is actually for just extending life expectancy, and it's actually for just giving like additional, like consciousness, let's say. And people, the navigators, are actually just like mutations that they were exposed from even before birth to the species, and they are like one with it, and they have like the power for actually traveling. So for the development of the whole universe, a species is key. So this planet that is the only one where they had the species is like the center of all the economics, albeit it's a desert.
Correct. So like the spice has like a lot of uses. It increases life. It increases, what would you call it? Like not psychedelic.
Like ESP.
Telepathic powers. It increases a lot of things. It only exists on this one planet. In the universe, there are two families that are incredibly powerful, and they're both vying for control of this planet. At the same time, the planet itself, which is a desert that has these huge worms that basically scare everyone away, they eat everything. There's a civilization on this planet called Fremens.
Fremens, yeah.
Fremens. And they and the rest of the universe have this prophecy about the one, Keanu Reeves from Matrix, who's going to come and save the world, and that's Kyle MacLachlan, and he's the son of one of the like very two powerful buying families, and then he goes to this planet. He assumes the identity of the Fremens. He takes control of the worms, which takes control of the spices, and he ends the war.
Yeah.
That's basically it. I mean, there's a lot of nuance. But that's what the film.
The only thing that I could actually add probably is like the book focus a bit more into the kind of intrigue and treason and like kind of thriller between like the families. So there is this sentence that is like one of the biggest quotes, like plans in the plans of the plans. That they say at the beginning, like, oh my god, so much intrigue. Is that there is no intrigue in this movie of any kind. But basically, the Emperor wants to get rid of the Atreides, that is the family of Kyle MacLachlan, because he's feeling threatened of them like taking over. So he offers them, he's like, hey, why don't you go to Arrakis and just be like the one that they exploit? But the idea is that the Harkonnens were there, and the Harkonnens are going to be like just pushed back to their own planet. And they're going to be like coming back to take over. So the Emperor is using the Harkonnens for just killing the Atreides. And then Paul, Kyle MacLachlan, is like trying to get vengeance for the rest of the movie, and he basically manipulates like a whole civilization for just get it to like just attracting the Emperor and destroying them with weird models.
And just to level set, so Kyle MacLachlan plays a character named Paul. Paul is essentially the one he's the centerpiece of all these prophecies. Arrakis is the planet where the spice is and the giant worm. And Arrakis is also called Dune, which is the name of the 1984 movie.
And the books.
21 movie. So
Yeah, and I had to say, this screenplay makes no sense. It makes
not at all.
It's almost like if you try to do a screenplay based on the notes of a rambling analysis of the book. They just tell me everything that happens on the book. Okay, I just read this only a single time. I'm going to be like turning it into a script. So there's like plenty of concepts that they only like. So once like the Muad'Dib, all the chosen stuff that they mention is okay. This needs to be here. It's going to be like super important. And then it's that you move on, you don't develop this. It's like, why do you need all these concepts that they are in an 800-page book into a 2-hour movie? Is that you don't need all of this. It's not serving any kind of purpose. It's almost like fan service, like terrible fan service.
It's horrible. Like, there's no sense to this, none at all. So I think we both broke up our viewing into 2 days. So I watched an hour and 15 minutes yesterday, and the rest today.
Yeah.
I was like, when I went to watch the rest of Dune today, I was like, I don't need to watch this. Like, I understand its style. I understand the story. There's going to be some sort of epic battle, and it was awful. I didn't want to finish it. I didn't want to.
It's incredibly painful to watch. But is that the problem is that I think that they didn't get a director that loved the original book. It almost feel like, why did you go with David Lynch? He's such a random director. He didn't do anything before this that you say is like, you know who will be great? The director of The Elephant Man. So that makes no sense.
This, David Lynch had done The Elephant Man the year before, and before that, he did Eraserhead, which has nothing to do with science fiction. It's like very postmodernist, avant-garde, like almost Armageddon-like.
I don't know if maybe there was something about like, hey, I know that Jodorowsky tried to do this, and he's also pretty fucking weird. Maybe I will succeed. Maybe I could do something amazing. And no, you didn't, David Lynch. No, you did not. I had to say... Sorry, go ahead.
No, I said I wanted to call out that even David Lynch, who felt like he didn't have creative control of this film, he insisted he had his name removed from the film because he was like, this is not what I wanted to make. So the director was credited with the name Alan Smithy, which is a pseudonym used by directors who wish not to be associated with a film for which they would normally be credited by.
And that's fair, but at the same time, I would actually say that the problem on this movie visually is impeccable. I have to say that is I visually have forgotten like how well made it is for being 84. It's like it's big studio kind of thing. It's true that some of the green screen effects they feel a bit, old by today's standard, but it's good. I mean, it's like that's actually impactful what they do on the screen.
There's actually a scene very early on where we're introduced to Paul, who is Kyle MacLachlan, and his mentor, correct me if I'm wrong, his mentor comes in and they start to spar.
Yeah.
And then we have this like grating exposition where we can hear their thoughts.
Oh god.
Kyle MacLachlan is like, why? He's not faking. Why is he attacking me?
But the thing is like when you're in a book, you can actually do that. And that's the reason what I think is like you only did like a pass of the book and it's like, okay, I'm going to be just taking everything, not even an analysis, because I assume that in an analysis they're not going to say like, and then he thought she's using the voice. But it's lazy.
From the very beginning, he should understand that that sort of exposition is lazy and a piece of shit, and it turns audiences off. Why did he do that? He didn't do it in Eraserhead. He didn't do it in Elephant Man. Why?
I have no idea. You know that we discussed, I don't know what movie, I think there was Gattaca, that it has like a bit of exposition in Inner Voice. And we were saying is like, I think that this movie could have worked exactly the same without that exposition. This one has like so much exposition that the beginning is a complete intent declaration when it's like the daughter of the emperor. That is, she has no role in this movie more than just being a partial narrator of the movie.
The introductory, there is a planet where there's a spice and everything is controlled by
and then she starts like fading out, and when it's about to fade out, it's like she comes back to the front, it's like, oh, I forgot to tell you something. There is like, okay, there's going to be a lot of exposition in this movie, and holy shit if there is. But the problem is that you can make this like way more palatable, is that you don't have to actually, I'm a fan of the book, but it's like if I'm going to be like watching at 2 hours and 20 minutes, I know that you have to cut a lot of stuff, and it's fine, just cut it. It's like we don't need all of this, it's that just focus on a couple of aspects that you really like of the book and develop those. But
I want to be very clear that exposition can be done well, like Little Children. Think about how well that was. It was different. It was a little bit lazy, but David Lynch could have had like the voice of God narration, or maybe just Paul's perspective. But no, it was like
everyone had an inner voice, and besides that, it was like almost every 30 seconds.
And it was awful. It's so. What are the two directors I mix up? There's Terrence Malick and Gilliam. I mixed the two up. What is the one I actually hate? Is it Gilliam?
Malick. No, you hate Malick. Yeah.
Malick has that awful like voiceover narration where it's like John Smith. It's like, and then I met Pocahontas, and she was the most beautiful thing I ever met.
But it's whispering. It's whispering. That makes it sophisticated.
Exposition is okay for whispering.
So
I wouldn't even do that.
But the thing is that the exposition that they were doing is like, that's the part that I feel is like maybe they added that exposition, and that's the reason why he decided that I'm not going to be signing for this. But honestly, that movie, even like without the exposition, makes no sense, because half of the time the exposition doesn't add anything at all. Is that when Paul meets the Reverend Mother, and she uses the voice, is like he says like, oh, she's using the voice. Is like, what is this adding? Is that I could have just seen this. It's like, it doesn't matter. It's like you already changed the tone. You're using like a vocoder. Is that, of course, something is going on here. I don't need to know like the term. It almost feels like the reaction that you could expect from Marvel fans when they go to watch a movie. It's like, oh my God, they have an Easter egg about this character that I think that it only know. But the whole cinema is screaming. Is that what you were expecting, about like a wink to the fans of the book?
So I will say the first scene that really bothered me with this like telepathic exposition was when Paul's mentor comes in and attacks him, and Paul thinks, why is he being like aggressive? Like, he should be acting, this should be sparring.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, like, just the tiniest bit of direction could have got this point across.
Yep.
You could have Kyle MacLachlan scared, like freaking out because this guy's attacking him, and I thought, why did they choose this? I don't understand.
Yeah, but it's just that it's not exposition for giving something about like, oh, he's using this technique or something like that maybe comes later. It's like, no, it's like, I cannot act or I cannot transmit that feeling to the audience in any other kind of way, and I need to narrate it through his thoughts. At the beginning, I thought that it's like, oh, maybe they're going to be like playing with mind reading. That I think that it was like something that in the book he could do, if I recall correctly. But it's like, no, he's just talking to himself. And then there are like a couple of scenes that I felt that is okay, this is David Lynch, definitely. Like when they talk about the sister and the mother Jessica like drinking the water of life, and he says like, oh, and is that this feels like that scene on Twin Peaks season 3 that you really like about Lily, or what was the evil entity? It's like just throwing up.
Yeah, like the bug that came out of her mouth.
Not the bug, is that the one in black and white with the nuclear explosion, and then you see that you get in there and you see like that evil entity, it's like just throwing out, and you see like the ball with both.
So I will say that I love that you brought this up, because there are glimpses in this film of genius, like 100% genius. And I have to wonder, like, Showtime gave David Lynch 100% freedom. They said, make Twin Peaks season 3. It didn't work. Not all of it worked, but you and I watched it, and there were moments of genius and moments of passion. And I can't remember what you said, but I said, I think this may be my favorite thing David Lynch has ever made. And I saw that in Dune. I saw glimpses of genius. I saw glimpses of a movie I wanted to see more of, and then it just like vanished, and I was like, what the fuck is this? This is horrible.
But even in the most stupid moments of Twin Peaks season 3, like all the doggy storyline, that is, let's just pretend that it's not happening, it almost feels like it's a way of just playing with the audience. It feels like it's okay, I'm going to be like putting up with this because you're like teasing me about other things. Is that you're doing like a 12-hour movie, or how many episodes were there, I don't remember, but in this case it's a 2-hour movie. You need to get somewhere, and you're throwing me a lot of stuff that it makes no sense whatsoever. Is that this is not what I'm expecting from David Lynch.
But take a step back. Like, when we watch a David Lynch film or a TV show, are you expecting it to make sense, or do you just want David Lynch to introduce us into his fucked up mind and just see these moments of like beauty? It doesn't have to make sense. I just want to be in David Lynch's mind.
True, but it's like we are not in David Lynch's mind. We are in Frank Herbert's mind through David Lynch in a very broken bridge kind of way. Because I think that the moments of genius that they are displayed on this movie, they are visual. They are completely 100% visual ones. It's like, I don't think that there is anything from the story, the narrative, the structure that is brilliant in any kind of way.
But that opens up a very interesting conversation about, does David Lynch owe us anything from the source material? Because let me tell you, I watched this only because David Lynch directed it. I don't have an interest in sci-fi fiction. I wanted to see David Lynch's interpretation of this epic story. I don't care about the book.
Okay,
So
do
what
you?
does he tell us?
But the thing is like, okay, you can tell me is that maybe this doesn't make sense. But for example, you can say that maybe Mulholland Drive or Lost Highway, they don't make complete sense. But are you going to tell me that this is as enjoyable as other pieces from David Lynch?
No, 100% no.
Why not?
I think he was weighed down by the source material. Not saying the source material is bad at all, but I think he just couldn't see his artistic vision fulfilled like he wanted.
Yep.
And so you're right. He should write his own shit. He's one of the only writers who should do that.
Yep.
But I do want to call out that I went and saw this movie because I love David Lynch, not because I love the book.
And it's fine. I mean, I think that that's like the interesting part. I love the book. I love David Lynch. I think that this is a piece of garbage. I don't know if it's like the studios did something wrong, but it's like when he's the only one credited for just doing the screenplay, that screenplay is probably one of the worst things that I've ever seen in my life, that I've ever heard in my life.
But what do you have to say when you see that David Lynch pulled his name off of this? And there are 3 different versions of the film that have been distributed worldwide. Yeah. Just trying to get closer to what he saw. Because I do think if the studios gave him complete creative control, we would have seen a very, very different film. And the studio, because of commercial purposes, they made it what we saw.
I don't know, man. I would have to read a bit more about it. But and write the script, yeah, that's another thing that is I remember this part. So he was even offered, David Lynch, to direct The Return of the Jedi, and he agreed to direct Dune and write the screenplay, though he had not read the book, known the story, or even been interested in science fiction before. So he said, I still don't know why he went down this path. It's the only time that he directed something completely random. It doesn't, when you actually think, he doesn't have any kind of epic story of this scale. Nothing. Is that this is big studio Hollywood kind of thing. Is that I don't know what he was playing to. He was offered to this. I thought there was some kind of contractual obligation. Is that why playing after the Elephant Man and Eraserhead with something of this scale? It's almost like you don't know your own limitations. You can say that the result was garbage because of the studio did something. You are not a director for this. You're not.
But isn't there a parallelism here with David Lynch and Denis Villeneuve? Because Villeneuve is fantastic at making these very intimate, tiny stories. Tell me the name of the Jake Gyllenhaal Spider movie.
The Jake Spider-Man?
No, where
Enemy. Yeah.
That film, we fucking love it, right?
Yeah.
Why would any studio be like, oh, you made this beautiful little story. Why don't I give you $250 million to make a space epic? Why?
No, because he did Arrival.
Okay.
And Arrival is a good balance between epic and a small story, and I think that works well. But is that the problem is they actually took him as this is the new chosen director for sci-fi. Is that we already realized that people don't like Christopher Nolan, that we have to just dial back a bit. Is that we think that Villeneuve is the new cool kid in the block, and they say he will be great. He loves sci-fi, and you can actually see it on Villeneuve that he treats it with respect.
So is there any David Lynch film that you would call epic? And I think I know the answer because he makes intimate stories about characters.
Correct. Yeah, it's not epic.
Is there anything you've seen by him where you're like, wow, he can make bigger scale films?
No, he cannot. The thing is that the interesting part, and this is the thing that is super confusing to me, is that all the settings, all the setups, all the visual aspect is absolutely fine. What is missing here is the characters.
I remember watching the first hour of this film, and then the scene that I keep talking about where Kyle MacLachlan Paul is being attacked by his mentor, and there's this weird special effect where they're fighting, but they have some sort of force field between them that's very awkward, like early 80s special effects. And it doesn't work today, but I thought, wow, David Lynch was ahead of his time. I can't think of another like mid-80s film that tried to do this sort of special effects. And I thought David Lynch did have vision. He did. But something didn't work, and I can't decide if it was David Lynch's direction or the investors that demanded he release a very palatable version of this. I don't know what went wrong.
Yeah, so I'm reading right now on the Wikipedia that his cut initially was 4 hours long. And the studio actually is like, look, you need to cut this back. So he just edited some scenes, but they were like still like too long. So they filmed new scenes that simplifying or concentrated plot elements, and they added voiceover narrations, plus a new introduction by Virginia Madsen that is completely out of place. So it looks like there is a 2-part movie for TV that is 186 minutes. That it may be better.
Would that make more sense?
Maybe that's the problem. That is like if it had been like 4 hours, you could have had all these elements. But at the same time, is that you don't need 4 hours for this. If you want to adapt it, and I remember like just saying when I saw it the first time, is that this book cannot be adapted. This book has a lot of meat. Now with time, I realized that it has a lot of meat. But if you want to tell this story, there are like many ways of telling it. You don't need to actually tell absolutely everything that happens on the book.
As much as I want to defend his direction, because David Lynch is basically a god for me, what you pointed out before about characters, these characters are so poorly written, even compared to like Star Wars. Like these characters are so basic, they're so one-dimensional, that there's nothing. And this is going to go towards the debate about why do people go see movies? You and I go see movies for very different reasons than maybe my sister, my mom. They go to be entertained. But there's nothing there for people who want something of substance. There's nothing. Like, I wanted to love Paul, and I'm very hopeful that I care about Timothée Chalamet in the new Dune, but there's nothing. There's nothing. There's just these archetypes, these very basic constructs of society that make things super boring.
I had to say, one of the reasons why I think that this is not an easy to adapt book is because one of the main characters is the planet itself. You know, is that they talk a lot about like the not only the socioeconomics, but about like the nature in that planet. They develop it as this a centerpiece. It's like an interesting kind of one-off planet, you know. So there are like two things that really offend me. Besides, like, okay, the script is terrible, but two directions that it is that the first one is that they have like these weird models that make no sense whatsoever, but nothing at all, absolutely nothing. It's like in the book there is like just fighting. It's like just learn like a specific style of fighting, and they do a bit more of a guerrilla kind of thing instead of having like really evolved, you know, like just weapons in the middle of the desert that you don't know how they actually got the materials and how they built it. And then the other part is like at the end of the book, at the end of the movie, suddenly it rains. It almost feels like Paul Muad'Dib has transcended into some kind of god status, and then it rains.
Because he's Jesus.
Yeah, and he's like just blessing.
And it's fucking annoying.
But the funny thing is, like in the middle of the movie, they actually say, it's like, hey, we have all this water because we want to change the surface of Arrakis. That is like part of the story on the books. It's like they actually try to make like small changes to the ecosystem, but still respecting like the sandworms, all the native life in there. And here is like they just completely remove that for just having a bit more of a shock. It's like, and now it rains. Fuck it. Even if I actually mentioned an hour ago that we want to slowly change the face of the planet, now it rains. Here you go.
Everything is fine. Jesus is here. We will fix everything. And I'm glad you brought that up because one of the reasons that I have such a hard time with science fiction is how it's dealt with, because I love science. I'm a big fan of science when it comes to like the COVID vaccine. I'm a fan. Let's listen to the experts. And this film, there were so many rituals and religions and things associated with it. And I thought, like, me as a human being, I love science, and I can't imagine like going to the NASA offices in the South Bay and seeing them do a ritual. And it just takes away all the magic of the genre for me to see that, like, okay, this is a mixture of technology and completely everything that we think about magical thinking.
Yeah, I had to say that sci-fi, there is a subgenre of sci-fi that they always like mix those two things together. You know, is that do it properly, it can be okay. Star Trek doesn't, for example, but Battlestar Galactica did it quite a bit about like just adding like a layer of mysticism that you don't know if it's real or it's not, you know. But I don't think that it's wrong, like from the perspective that we as a species, for example, everything that we couldn't explain, we'd be like, that's magic or that's God. They just made up something that is going to be like explaining everything that we cannot explain with science. So what about if in the future we would do like something like that? That is like whatever we cannot explain, we're going to say that this is a ritual that is like, well, maybe it's because of the capacity of bending space-time that the species can give you, you know, and it's like some specific people could actually see the future, and it's like a foretold kind of prophecy.
But being a person in the present, do you ever see these leaps in science? And you're like, oh, we don't understand anything, it must come from a ritual.
No, not anymore. Not anymore, because we are not exposed to big changes. You know, imagine, for example, if there was like a discovery, like a huge discovery of technology that is like completely out of our understanding. Is like, of course, we already have like the critical thinking about like, hey, there has to be a logical explanation. But if you were to see, I don't know, a ghost, like that, you know, like just a ghost in front of you, is that probably you're going to say is like, oh, maybe there is a scientific explanation, but probably this means that there is something else.
I hear what you're saying, but as somebody who loves science, I constantly watch every development. That doesn't happen. And so I like to see science fiction treated in the direction that we see science actually going. And so as somebody who doesn't love sci-fi, I constantly look to Moon with Sam Rockwell, because technology existed, but that wasn't it. It was about a human drama, about a clone.
What's The Expanse then? Is that's, you know, The Expanse is on Amazon Prime. It's a TV show, and I think that is more up your venue about like saying like this is like hardcore sci-fi. There is no magic, there is no prophecies, there is no religion on this. There are Mormons, actually, that I find hilarious.
They're very smart. They're very progressive.
Yeah, they basically just build a giant spaceship for just taking them to the promised land.
To Kolob?
Yep.
The special planet God lives on?
Exactly.
I can't believe I used to belong to them.
So it just was that I completely understand it. Like for me, I have a bit more of tolerance. I appreciate the hardcore sci-fi. There is no bullshit here. It's like I just want the sci-fi stuff. But also I appreciate this kind of conflict in between. Like I have the hardcore sci-fi, but at the same time, I have like this kind of bullshit prophecy kind of thing. One of my favorite TV shows is Deep Space Nine from Star Trek, and they play a lot with that perspective. There is like on the first episode is that one of the characters is chosen by some mysterious entities as you're the emissary and you're going to be like venerated by this planet, and everyone on the planet is like, oh,
Keanu Reeves. You're Keanu Reeves in the Matrix. Yes.
Yep. But then what they explain you is that, well, basically those creatures that they live there is that they are actually detached. They do not live their life in a continuum kind of manner. Is that they exist basically like just beyond time, and it's like for them is that everything is like just happening at the same time. So from that perspective, whoever communicated with them in the past is like, oh yeah, the emissary is that you the emissary. You don't know if you met him already or not, but the emissary exists. So the whole planet, as they only had a couple of exposures to them, they will always talk and build this kind of mysticism about like, we don't understand who they are, but there is an emissary that one day will show up. So it builds up into this kind of like, well, we are like completely scientific, the Federation, and one of us is the emissary, and this planet are crazy about this guy. So it's this kind of conflict in between, like, what is the science? And they even like explain logically about like, look, nothing of this is gods or prophets or anything. Is that this is just random creatures that they decided like, yeah, we're going to call this guy the emissary. Let's see what happens. So basically they were being trolled. There were no like gods or anything.
So I think for me, just as a person who consumes movies, my two big complaints are the lack of a focus on real science and where it can go in the future. And this is a perceived issue. I feel like David Lynch didn't get to make the movie he wanted, and I would have loved to have seen that. So those are the two things that I say, let David Lynch do what he wants. And let's not pretend that rituals have any place in science, because rituals are fucking ridiculous. And honestly, I say that having my tarot cards read yesterday by my friend visiting.
Okay.
Who need no insights at all besides my husband and I can continue together as long as we take care of our relationship, which I could have heard from any psychotherapist.
That's true, but probably would have been more expensive.
Way more expensive and way more, serious in terms of like the message.
Yeah. So we don't need to discuss too much about like if the rituals have any place or not. It's a bit more about like what do you want to believe that works, because probably everything that happens on the movie, quote unquote, it can be explained into some kind of scientific terms. In a universe that we can say that is like, hey, look, taking this species, it actually just allows you to bend space-time. If we acknowledge that part, I think that everything else is like fair game.
No, that's ridiculous. Einstein laid out a theory that showed how to bend space. That's a real science. Having a ritual to show like, oh, I received the revelation that this is the savior of our kind. That's what's fucking ridiculous. Bending space, I get.
But don't you think, I think there's a bit more about like the classic time travel paradoxes. That is a bit more, it's like, hey, you're looking into the future, you're going to be like forcing that future to happen. And what we are saying is like that species allows you to see into the future. It's not a ritual or anything like that. It's like, it's just basically you're super high.
I see what you say. And again, this is coming from a person that has a hard time with science fiction. For me, it's hard to suspend my disbelief unless the story that I'm being told is hyper-human focused and the technology is like the background, like Paris is Burning. We super appreciated that documentary because AIDS wasn't the primary character. It was just something people were dealing with. Mm-hmm. So I like to see sci-fi where it's not the primary thing, it's a background thing.
So like Gattaca?
Fuck you for bringing up Gattaca, because we both had a weird experience where we thought this was a great film. No, it's just kind of a good film.
I would still give it a 7. I think that is a good film.
It's a good film, 100%. In fact, I went to Utah immediately after Chicago and talked to my brother-in-law, who's a huge cinephile, and we were talking about the film. He hadn't seen it for years, and we were talking about how realistic it is, which it's actually incredibly realistic when we think about like discrimination based on like scientific standards. It's horrifying. It's basically what's happening today on a different scale. I don't know. Going back to Dune, there's just nothing for me to relate to on a human scale, on a scientific scale. There's nothing for me to connect to. I didn't feel any emotions watching this. In fact, at the end, when Paul's eyes turned blue, his Fremen's spouse, her eyes were blue, I thought, no, you've lost me. There's nothing here for me. I'm done. I will finish watching this for the podcast, and that's it.
Honestly, the book is significantly better. It's like I think that the source material can give something good. Now, I think that also like Villeneuve is splitting the movie into parts.
Is that good or bad?
I think that it could be good because no one wants to see 4 hours of a movie. You know, that's something that David Lynch should have known. No one wants to go for 4 hours to the cinema. No one. That's something that needs to be like just said explicitly. I love Kill Bill. I love Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2.
I was just thinking, like, if they put Kill Bill 1 and 2 together, I would go see a 5-hour film. That's the one exception. That's it.
I thought several times about it, and I always say, it's like, no, I can't. I just can't. It's like, I will give up. You know, halfway, I would start seeing like Volume 2, and I would be like, this has been too much. I just need a break.
Respectfully, I disagree. If I told you that in LA they were showing a 5-hour version of Kill Bill Volume 1 and 2, we would drive down there. We would spend 7 hours in a car each way. We would watch it and we would have a good time. I disagree with you.
I'm just telling you right now, thinking about watching a 4-hour movie is just give me pause. Now, I think that...
Sorry, who made us watch Celine Dion Goes Boating? Who?
I didn't know that it was going to be like that. And besides that, we didn't record a podcast, so there is no proof. I offered you recording a podcast, and you say no. Because that would imply wanting to watch it again. So, but from that perspective, I think that Villeneuve may have been like a bit smarter. And that's the reason that I feel is that maybe he can actually develop like some of the parts that Lynch cut here, and they feel like really rushed. I mean, because for example, like the part about the sister, you could have removed the sister completely. What is her point? It's just awkward. It's only for just having that scene against the Baron Harkonnen and seeing him floating around, and then he comes like a worm and eats him.
For hours, he flew around.
Yeah.
Like the last 30 minutes, they're like, bring the flying fat man in.
Yep. They were like really proud of those special effects, and they were also really proud of how cool Sting looked in a Speedo.
My God, I actually texted you yesterday afternoon, and I was like, my God, is it just me, or is this super homoerotic? Because the scenes with the bad guys, there's like twinks in like see-through costumes and briefs.
That part I have a bit of a problem, because if I recall correctly, the book, it didn't have that kind of, you know, like they're the bad guys and, you know, they're gay.
Oh, and it's like more like nuanced in the book?
Yeah, I don't think that there was like something as explicit as let Lucas Sting almost naked and just is like, you're gorgeous.
With like pus oozing out of my face, but I'm gonna fuck you anyway, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So let me say really quickly, I love David Lynch. I hated this movie, but I'm still very optimistic about the new Dune that comes out. I think there's a lot there in the universe that is compelling, that tells an important story about humanity. I'm hopeful it will be good. I don't know.
Yeah. Actually, no, I'm reading that the Baron was supposed to be gay. Like openly gay. Okay. In the book too. I have forgotten that part. But I just feel like probably that's not going to happen in this movie. I'm going to be like betting that the Harkonnen are going to be there because they're an iconic, you know, like evil presence in that universe.
Not getting queers?
I don't think so. I think that that's like a, I don't know, not the right message, let's just say. And I also have like worries about like what is going to be like happening here, because I think that in both cases they gave this project to someone that it doesn't work well at that scale. With Villeneuve, with David Lynch, they didn't know that, you know, and he said, "Is like, well, I'm going to give it a try. I was offered like so many things. Jodorowsky wanted to do this, so there has to be like something interesting here." And I think that on this case, it's a bit more of they're giving a blank check to Villeneuve, and I don't know what is going to happen. Probably nothing too good.
I will say that if I were a studio executive, and I've never been that, but if I saw David Lynch, maybe I went to Sundance and I saw Eraserhead, or I saw The Elephant Man because it was nominated for an Oscar, I would have said, let's put some money into this person. Let's let him do whatever he wants. It would have been the wrong decision, but I don't think anybody else would have made a different decision.
Okay, no, that's fair. I mean, I'm checking that Dune has a 76 on Metacritic. So,
Actually, I
while
will say that
the new one,
the budget was 40 million and it made 30, I think 30.9. It lost about 25% of its budget.
yeah, and usually the budget, I don't know if it includes all the marketing that they did for the movie. So
I think now they include the number, but not back then.
yeah, so yeah, what is this? We paid this with like 40 to 42 millions, and on box office it was like for 31 to 38. So they lose some money for sure, you know, and that's only in North America. It's like if you add everything, it's like maybe they broke even more or less. But in any case, sorry.
But they shouldn't have. This was a terrible movie. Terrible.
Yeah. So was this the first movie for Kyle MacLachlan? Because this is before Blue Velvet. This is the movie before Blue Velvet.
I don't want to say because I think I'm misremembering, but
Yep.
as I recall, some interview I saw with David Lynch that he discovered Kyle MacLachlan somehow, and then he got Dune, and he called him and said, "Be in this movie," and he said yes.
What did you think of the casting on that perspective?
The cast of this film is fucking incredible. I mean, it brings the actors from Twin Peaks, it has Captain Picard, it has like all of these very, very talented people. But it didn't matter because the script was so shitty. It didn't matter. There's nothing that we could have got Captain Picard to say that sounded interesting or profound. There was nothing to do.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is the cast, they did as much as they could with the script that they were giving. There is like very little that you can do when you have like, I'm the chosen one, and then I'm going to be like thinking, the chosen one, I am. So
I could not stop thinking about Keanu Reeves. Last half of the movie, I was like, this is the Matrix. This is the Matrix, but bad.
but yeah, it's one more story of the chosen one, you know, in many different ways that we have seen, you know, in different incarnations. Should we go over the questions?
Let's do it. And my score has changed dramatically from this conversation.
Yeah, I already brought it down, so don't check it out. So yeah, I should have actually written down at the beginning of the conversation as we said that we're going to do. But could you watch this again?
Yes, not because it's good, but because they're remaking it. I want to see the conversation between David Lynch in 1984 compared to Villeneuve in 2021. Yes, I would watch it again, but I would not like it.
So you would watch it as a kind of punishment to yourself?
Yes, I would watch it as like wanting context to whatever happens in the future. That's it. Just context.
I could never. I think that I'm done. This may be like the third or the fourth time that I'm watching this. I watched it like the first time that I was like, oh, this is too complex for me. The second time that I say is like, I love David Lynch. I'm going to watch everything that he did because I also love Dune. This is going to be perfect. Probably haters are going to hate. It's like, holy shit, this was bad. Then there was like one more that I watched it because my former roommate used to defend this movie. He was saying it's like, there's like some creative freedom, but I love David Lynch and Dune. We have like similar taste, and this is a good adaptation. And they're like, do you remember that they have sonic models, the weirding models that they can just scream and they make things explode? It's like, no, that didn't happen, and it doesn't matter. It's like, do you remember that at the end? And then it suddenly rains. He actually had blocked all the serious stuff of the movie, and he only remembers like visually was great, and the music was cool. It was from Toto.
The music was good, and that's called confirmation bias. Your friend just wanted to see what he wanted to see.
Correct. Yeah. It was a bit more like if I love Dune and I love David Lynch, probably that movie was amazing. And we watched it again, and it was like, do you remember now? Do you remember now? And then it was like, yeah, okay, this was not that good. This was not that good at all.
Which is why, in my mind, Lost Highway is one of the best films in the world.
But it's a really good film.
It is good, but it's not as good as I think it is in my mind.
We should watch it again.
We should, yeah.
Yep, because we haven't talked about it yet. Could you recommend this?
Absolutely not. I mean, maybe the one situation was like, oh, I'm super excited to see Dune, and I would be like, did you see the 1984 version? Because there's nowhere to go but up from here. That's it. This is the one place I would recommend it.
did you know that there was a TV version? I think that it was in the 2000s, a TV adaptation that he had for Paul James McAvoy.
I had no idea. None.
So it has been adapted like multiple times, because I was thinking, would I recommend it if someone tells me, hey, I want to watch a Dune adaptation? I would say like, yes, not a David Lynch version. I cannot talk. Yeah, there are like many other adaptations that they were made for TV. Go with those. Forget about this one. This one we know that is bad. That's the only thing that you need to know about it. Would you remember it?
I would say the major plot points, like the Arrakis with the worms, like that I will remember. The details about the competing families, no.
For me, I will remember it because it's close-ish to the book, but just the bad parts. I mean, just the bad parts. It's a bit more like you just get like the wrong points of interest from the book. And I think that's, look, you can have like a streamline this if you're going to be like making only 2 hours, is like remove half of these.
That's fair. I mean, it's completely forgettable almost the entire film.
Yeah, I mean, it's forgettable because there are like so much stuff happening and at the same time so little of interest. That is like, why are these so many scenes? Like, does the water of life matters at the end of the day?
No, it doesn't. It doesn't at all. None of the rituals matter. Nothing matters.
Does it matter that they have like a lot of water underground?
No, until the chosen one comes, until Keanu comes and saves the world. No, it doesn't matter.
But it's like he's making something rain. They're not even saying that it's like, hey, what we are making rain is what is below. It's not about that. So it's like nothing really matters. It's like it's a bit more like most of it is untranscendental. And that's the reason what I feel is that even if you had like 4 hours, I think that you were trying to pack too much stuff. Even if you actually took like double the time for explaining why Paul was going to have like 3 different names. You know, when he arrives to the frame and he's like, how do you want to be called? Usul. Is like, but what is the last name that you want to be using? Muad'Dib. It doesn't matter. He's like, what is the point? Is it because then you only use Muad'Dib? Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit more like, in the book, when you have 100 pages to just use this in different contexts, it has some kind of importance. In this case, it has nothing, absolutely nothing. So I will remember it, a bit of a cautionary tale about like never watch it again. I will remember like more the differences with the book because I feel peace about it, but I know that the rest of it is just the deformed, grotesque, fan mirror house version of the book.
And I do want to call out the caveat that if I were to read the book, I think I would remember the differences. Otherwise, if I don't read the book, fuck you, I'm done with this.
Yeah, this is what I was telling you. A friend of mine was telling me, is like, if you read the book, the story makes a bit of sense, but if you didn't, is that there is like a lot of stuff that is like, what is the point of all of this? Where are they going with all of this bullshit that you say is like just nonsense ritual that is happening here?
Yep.
So next one, is there anything artistic about it?
I will say that all of the special effects felt dated, but I thought some of them were cool. And again, I keep calling the scene I keep wanting to remember it when Paul is fighting his mentor and they have these like interesting
seals, like personal seals,
sort of shields. Like, I thought, okay, this doesn't make any sense today, but it's kind of interesting. So I will say that like there are some special effects where I thought this is ahead of its time, and that's it.
Yeah, I would say that from that perspective, yes, ahead of its time, but I also really like that everything was tastefully made. Is that there was like an attention to detail that it was impressive, from the Fremen suits to how the Baron, like was dressed up, and plenty of details. The problem is like you could have cut back on that assortment of different details. Like, we don't need to know that the Harkonnen, they have like this bulb in the heart. Maybe you want to make them look evil, and that's why they do it. And where they have like the head, like all the servants, they have like their head like just safe, like part of the head. But it's like, yeah, you're trying to do some world building. Is great. It's like visually pretty striking, but everything else is so bad, man. It's, I just feel pleased because it's like I feel like there is careful crafting that I think that is artistic, and the music I think that is perfect. You know, from an epic odyssey from the 80s, is that yeah, you know that it's from the 80s, but it's good.
I will say that the first time I can't remember the name, but the Emperor of the Universe, he arrives and he speaks with like some sort of one of the ruling families, and it's very dramatic, and they have all the people in the hoods drag him in, and there's smoke coming out of his like throne, I guess, which is basically in a closed cage. I thought this seems super dated, but it's also incredibly artful. But it's also super dated, and I don't know how much interesting there is in these visuals.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I still feel like I may have a soft spot for it because it actually resembles the old Hollywood age. It feels like this movie could have been made in the 50s. It's large studio sets, you know, and I think that yeah, from time to time they use a special effects that they didn't have back then, but we are at a point that we don't have the special effects of 1999, like for the Matrix, but they use it in a tasteful kind of way. Even like those personal scenes, like, this is a bit aged, but you know, it's okay. It's charming in some way, even by today's standard.
It's charming as a relic from the early 80s.
Yeah, no, and that's fair. But for me, it's like it's well crafted with the resources that they had, and there's nothing like too histrionic about saying like, oh my god, this what were we thinking in the 80s?
And I don't think that David Lynch went overboard like Blade Runner 2049. That was like insane, too epic. I think David Lynch kept kind of the scale that he was good at. It's not perfect, it's a mess, but he kept that kind of like that feeling that we got from Eraserhead with the guy in the industrial area of town with the baby that cried. Like, he kept some of that intimacy that was somewhat compelling. It's not good, but I saw it.
Yeah, I didn't from the perspective that the characters that just felt like plot devices. They were like just like devices for just saying one sentence from the book to the next sentence to the book about like say Modi, say Vasul, say something else. It's like we just need to go to the key points of the story instead of actually developing them as human beings.
But slowly, over 2.5 hours. We don't need to go from point to point. Don't worry, we're gonna make you suffer.
Is this a timeless piece?
Absolutely not. This is firmly rooted in 1984. It will never go beyond that. Besides, contextual piece to 2021's Dune. There's nothing that feels timeless about this.
I don't know, man. I mean, I see your point. I don't fully disagree. I mean, there is a point from me. There is this book is from 74, I think.
I think it was the 60s, no? Like 64, 65?
Oh no, you're right, 66. 65, actually, 65. And he got the Who Award in 66. So it's a pretty old book, and the story that it presents is like true. It has like that ritualistic kind of nature. You don't like it, it's absolutely fine. But
I think you have to take a step back and recognize that sure, the book may be timeless. 100%. I haven't read the book. This movie will stay in the 80s forever.
But that's the thing, is like I don't know if I agree so much with the feeling age. You know, it's like I think that, for example, Blade Runner, that is from 82, it has aged significantly better. You know, they were like just
that was a joke. Jose's giving me the stink eye.
So from that perspective, I think that it's true that this is a bit more rooted because it tried to be like a fantasy sci-fi kind of thing about like we're going to a random planet and they're going to be like giant creatures and they're going to be alien mutated shapes of humans. I think that they tried to push more. You know, they tried to be a bit more out there when Blade Runner was a bit more like trying to be rooted in reality.
It tried 100%, but did it succeed? No. Like, honestly, I know you hate Ingmar Bergman, but you cannot deny that his films are timeless. The themes he addresses, the stories he tells, those are timeless films, whether or not you like them. This film is not timeless in the slightest.
Well, but I think that the problem here is that he couldn't actually develop anything about the characters. Is that we don't know what struggles they're going through.
He couldn't, or he didn't want to, because he wrote shit characters.
Correct, but it's what I'm saying. Okay, I agree with you. The answer is no, because there is nothing that would transcend time. I can say that artistically it's pleasing, but I can also say that there is nothing that defines any universal topic.
I see your point. I still think this is not a timeless piece, but I can see the arguments where
Oh no,
it didn't attempt to tell a timeless story. In my opinion, it didn't succeed. In your opinion, it succeeded in these tiny, tiny ways. Right?
I think that in tiny ways is I think that there is potential for this to be timeless, and I'm like curious to see Villeneuve pulls a miracle. I doubt it a lot.
Not to keep like contradicting you, but did it succeed in its potential? Did it reach?
Oh no,
its...
no,
so
there is not.
Timeless.
No, the problem. Yeah. I mean, the problem that I see here is like knowing the book is that I know that there are topics that I felt like, wow, this is pretty cool. You know, about like all the nature study that they do on the planet is that I felt is that this is hardcore sci-fi. But this guy like completely disregarded all that part because it's not the most exciting part of the book. You may have like 100 pages of the book about like talking about how the wind operates in this planet and all the ecosystem that it created. That is like this fucking amazing. Is that this is super cool to read, you know? And the characters are developed in some kind of way. Here, they're a bit more, as I told you, they're like just a vehicle. It's not about like it's timely or not. It's like I think that it's garbage. And I don't know if being garbage translates into is timely.
Did you see the film The Road?
With Viggo Mortensen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I'm drawing a metaphor between that film and that book, which is my favorite book of all time.
Oh, yeah.
And so if I were asked to be judged, was the film timely or timeless, I would have to say timeless because I read the book and I fucking loved it and it was brilliant. So I think I hear where you're coming from. I can accept your answer. It had the potential to be timeless. In my opinion, it failed. But I get where you're coming from, 100%.
Yeah, and
does that make sense to you?
No, it makes sense. It's like I cannot be completely unbiased about it because I know like the full potential that it could actually have achieved.
And you said this is one of your favorite books of all time, right?
Yeah, I love this book. You know, so from that, I mean, I read it only like once only, I think, because it's 100 pages. It's like one of those books that is like, I'm done. Thank God, this was great. I'm never going to be touching this again.
Well, now I really want to read it, and since I don't have a job, maybe that's what I'll do tomorrow.
Maybe it would take you like 3 days only of reading all my stuff. But yeah, no, I fully agree. I think that you are right. It's completely timely. There is nothing that is going to be like transcending.
But that is the investor's fault, David Lynch's fault, maybe the writers. It's not that the piece doesn't have potential. It does. I can see it. I can see David Lynch's vision. I can see the author of the book's vision.
Yeah.
But ultimately, what was released, this film, no.
Just no, David Lynch. No. Could you turn this into a TV show? And
absolutely not.
Correct. No. I was going to say is that let's not talk about like the potential. Let's just talk about like David Lynch takes these like 2 hours and he actually says like not even 4. I'm going to be like doing 12 hours of this.
We watched 40 hours of Twin Peaks, and it was sometimes hard, but we were willing to do it. Would I watch 40 hours of this film? Never. I would go to bed.
Yeah, I honestly think that David Lynch should never ever try to experiment with gigantism about like, okay, I want to just put like this gigantic set, but I want to make it about the characters. Is that don't ever do that. You can't. You just can't.
He needs to make films about people riding a lawnmower across America. That's what he excels at. That's it.
Well, but I think that really that was a bit more of a in your face kind of thing. I think there was a bit more is like, you think that I can only direct weird films?
Let me show you.
Let me show you what I could do.
A PG movie of a dude riding across America.
Almost in real time.
Lost Highway. You don't like Wild at Heart, but I did. Mulholland Drive, Inland Empire. He has the capacity to make us feel menace, fear, think about things. Like, he has that capability. Even in his shorts, it's there. It's missing in Dune. It's gone.
Yeah, you know someone that I would like to just work together with David Lynch is this artist that I was telling you about the other day, Cindy
Sherman, the
Sherman.
photographer.
Yeah, the photographer.
Fantastic.
Yeah, but I was thinking that she's good about creating like fictional stories just with a single glimpse into it. Is that just your imagination fill up like everything else? And I think that David Lynch plays a lot also with that idea about like, I'm going to be like giving you random pieces and you're going to be like just thinking about like, how the heck does this connect? But I feel weird. I feel like discomfort about like just what can be behind this.
I don't know if I used the word that makes sense to you, but Cindy Sherman's art, there's an underlying sense of menace. Like, there's this fear, there's this, it's not overt horror, but there's something there that's disturbing. And that's the same emotion.
It's unsettling.
Yes. So she were his cinematographer or the director of photography, I think it could be incredibly compelling.
Yeah, I think that it would be like, I respect and I think that David Lynch is a one-man show, but I still think that it would be interesting, like just if they would be like empowering each other and just creating something extremely unique, that everything that they both did, I think that they are like extremely unique, or if there is like talents that they should never get close to each other.
Imagine if Cindy Sherman were to collaborate with David Lynch on a video installation that went into the MoMA or the Art Institute of Chicago.
Yeah.
You know, we would be sitting there just digesting it, even if we didn't understand it. I totally see what you're saying.
Yeah. So, but that's mostly lost here. You know, it's like those glimpses, I think that they are not enough, you know, and turning this into a TV show, it could be like just punishment. Punishment for something that you did on your previous life. Do you think that this movie could have been better?
Absolutely, if they had gotten a different cast, a different scriptwriter, and a different director.
Honestly, I think that is that the cast is not really at fault. Is that I actually like Kyle MacLachlan as Apollo Atreides.
That feels offensive to me, and I don't know why.
Because
I'm
the end
not
result is
convinced
terrible. Oh, you're not?
No, I think he's very limited. I mean, did you see him in Desperate Housewives?
It's exactly what I was going to say. It's like Desperate Housewives' role is completely different with what he did in David Lynch. Didn't you see it in How I Met Your Mother?
Kyle MacLachlan is in How I Met Your Mother?
Yep.
As what? As whom?
He's the husband of one of the love interests of the main character. And he's on 3 episodes as a psychopath captain of a boat.
I did not see that, but I will say I do feel like he can be a good actor with the right script. I don't think he's very versatile.
Okay. No, that's fair. I think that on this one, like the script is so out there, there is a bit more. It's like you are not really going to shine here. It doesn't really matter what you do. But I don't think that is because of the cast. I don't think that is Kyle MacLachlan was holding this movie from its full potential.
The cast was fantastic. I'm not the biggest fan of Kyle MacLachlan, but the cast is incredible. Like, all of them kept their careers. They're still going. It's really, really impressive. I don't know. I think I have some bias against Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah, I mean, I had to say that for me, this movie, yes, it could have been better, but it's like if we had replaced, for example, I would be curious to see what would have happened if we had replaced David Lynch for Ridley Scott.
And we had another... No.
He came from doing Alien, he came from doing Blade Runner. I think that he was just posed as the sci-fi heraldum, you know, like the perfect, you know, the child poster, no, it's called?
The poster child of
the
like
poster
sci-fi,
yeah. So is that from that perspective, I thought that this would have been like a really good opportunity. But as Blade Runner was a commercial failure, you know, for similar reasons as David Lynch said that this was a failure, that the studio actually intervened and they changed and they added narration to the whole movie.
So let me ask you this. If whatever studio funded the current Dune, 2021 Dune, had said, David Lynch, please come back, make whatever film you wanted to make, do you think he could have fulfilled whatever vision he had?
No.
Because he's the wrong director? Or the...
Correct.
Okay.
I think that he's the same way that my doubts with Villeneuve is that if you give like too much scope to your movies, you cannot do, as we say, it is like what you did on Enemy or even in Arrival, that you make it about the nuances of those characters, is that gets completely lost on the epicness.
So what percentage of confidence do you have in the new Dune to be good in a 1 to 100 scale?
1 to 100, okay. I want to believe that it may be at least entertaining, so I'm going to be like a 50-50, that this could be at least entertaining. But one thing that I'm like a bit hesitant is Blade Runner 2049, that we gave a 5.5. It has an 80 something on Metacritic, and this movie already has a 70 something. So it's like, I don't know. People love Blade Runner for I don't know what reason. 2049 is like, if people are not liking Dune at this point, they already have a 76. I don't know.
It is very good news that 1, they released it in October, and 2, they gave it to critics before it was released, because if the studio had no faith in it, they would have said, no, we're not going to show it to anyone. Everyone can just see it when it comes out.
Do you think that this is the kind of reception that they were expecting?
I think the pandemic ruined everything for the release of this film,
Okay.
But I will say that the fact they still released it in October is a very good sign. If they had no faith in this film, they would have released it in February.
Oh, yeah, that's fair. Yeah, that's completely fair. So, what about you? What is your percentage?
It ranges dramatically from like 35% to 60%, because I do have faith in the source material, and I think I'm going to read the book. I don't have a job now, so I have all the free time in the world. I'm going to read the book, but as we discuss often, directors aren't always able to bring to life the source material. I'm not convinced about the director for this new film.
Yep.
I think Timothée Chalamet is a little bit of he is talented, but he's not as talented as studios want us to think. So,
Do you think that he's more talented than Kyle MacLachlan?
Like a million times more talented than Kyle MacLachlan.
Then just go with this, a sci-fi movie. Is like they don't need to be like, I don't know, like Ingmar Bergman level stars.
I never have high standards for a sci-fi film. I mean, I always hope it'll be Moon. That makes me think, what is it to human, whatever. I think, based on Blade Runner 2049, I'm going to go into this film and think that was mildly entertaining, and it didn't make me think anything new or interesting about society or make me think about myself differently. So I would say 55-60% is my hope.
Okay. Yeah, no, that can be fair. So the only thing left is actually scoring this.
And this was your pick, your quote-unquote pick?
Yeah, so... This was what?
This was really my pick.
Okay, I can score it first. We went like over the synopsis, like half and half. So my score is 3.5.
My score after this conversation is 2. I started out at a 2.53, and then I was like, no, there's nothing redeeming about this, nothing. You brought up Stargate.
Stargate?
No, Star Trek: The Next
Star Trek.
Generation.
Yeah, Deep Space Nine, yeah.
Deep Space Nine, that's what it was. And I think that show had more thought-provoking ideas than Dune did.
Watch, now that you're employed, give it a chance. I mean, it has aged, because they didn't remaster the show, so the first couple of episodes, like, oh my god, this looks like garbage. Yeah, it's like all the special effects. This show is like from the 90s. Is like the special effects of Dune of that personal seal, they're like light years ahead of what they could actually pull on a Deep Space Nine in some episodes.
I used to watch that show as like a 13-year-old with my grandparents. They loved it, and I watched it. And this is pretty compelling.
Yeah, I will send you, honestly, it's like I watched it like last year, and I was like, this is good, because it's one of the first TV shows in network television that they bet for having continuity. So there are like seasons that they are like basically 15 episodes that they are like just a single overarching narrative. So the thing is, like, it was pretty bad for the model of television about like, hey, just watch an episode and you don't need to think too much, you know, there may be like small details. But now that you have time, I would recommend it. I think there is decent sci-fi, and also watch The Spans. The Spans have a couple of seasons that they are like really, really good.
But let me also bring to your awareness that the way you just described that show is way better than you described Dune. So I'm just trying to say,
Okay.
Context, Dune is a piece of shit. Nobody should watch.
Okay, Dune the movie, not Dune the book.
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
I'm describing Dune, the movie directed by David Lynch.
Okay.
That's it.
All right.
Dune, not the book.
No, okay. Yeah. I want to make sure. I think that Dune the book is super interesting. It is. It's from the 60s, it's true, but it's super interesting. Now, this movie is something that no one should talk about. So super that does not exist. And I understand like David Lynch saying like I didn't direct this, because even if it was like its best version, I don't think that the score would have changed too much.
But wait, did you ask the question, will we remember this in 6 months? I don't think you did.
Yeah, I asked, and you said that you couldn't. And I said that yes, I would.
Oh, we asked if it was forgettable. Yes, it's completely forgettable. I won't remember it in 6 months. No.
Yeah, I didn't have that, but as a bonus point, I want to ask you, do you remember The Marriage of Maria Brown?
Oh yeah, I fucking love that movie. I loved it.
Yeah.
I don't remember the fine details, but I remember enough.
Yeah, and that was something that I left on the calendar, like 6 months in the future. Are we going to be remembering about this movie? And when I saw it, it was like, when I saw the reminder, it's like, actually, I do. This was a really good movie. I don't remember like all the details. Maybe you remember like a bit more of it. But I remember like the beginning at the end, and just saying that it's like, yeah, this is about the reunification of Germany.
Yep.
I got it.
Female empowerment and the husband coming out of jail and her being rich. No, I remember that film. I will not remember these details about Dune in 6 months, I promise you.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, I almost like forgot it, so it's fine. Cool. And as this was a bonus episode, as in, we already said that our next bonus episode is probably going to be like talking about the 2021 version.
Timothée Chalamet, here we go.
And Villeneuve again. And to everyone out there, thank you so much for putting up with a podcast that I think that is more than half the duration of this movie, and that's a lot.
And wash your hands, everyone.
Yeah. Bye.